The following is a Candlepin Stars and Strikes rebroadcast featuring some of our most memorable programs.
Hi, everybody, and welcome once again to Park Place Lanes here in Windham, New Hampshire, and another edition of Candlepin Stars and Strikes. Doug Brown along with Dan Murphy. Hope you had a chance to be with us last week. If you didn't, you missed a big score by Dan Brodeur in the first week of this series.
Absolutely, 440. It was, well, any spare leave he made, triple strikes, and Timmy threw a double. It was just over 800 pins between the two bowlers. Great match.
Well, after Dan knocking off Tim Lipke, he moves up the ladder from that number 4 spot, and now he's going to try and make it 2 in a row. So let's introduce you to our 2 bowlers for this show. Again, the number 4 seed, fresh off that 440 a week ago from Bow, New Hampshire, Dan Brodeur.
Okay, and Dan comes in averaging 125, has a high triple of 441, and a roll-off score to qualify for the show was 670.
Of course, the roll-off held at the Dover Bowling Center for this 5-string series, and we always talk about the roll-off scores, the 5 strings that the bowlers throw to get to this point. And just above Dan Brodeur in that roll-off, after 5 strings, only 2 pins separated these two guys. Our number 3 seed from Stoneham, Massachusetts, another Stars and Strikes veteran, Bob Kelly.
Absolutely. Bob's record with us is 10-7. He carries an average of 123, has an individual high single of 210, and as you mentioned, his roll-off score just 2 pins better than Dan at 672.
Of course, we have our bonus ball contest coming up at the end of the show. It'll be worth $30 this week. We hope that we have your postcards. If not, we'll tell you how to send us some. And we have 3 strings of bowling coming up, and we're going to get it started between Dan Brodeur and Bob Kelly right after we take these messages. We'll be right back. Again in review, last week Dan Brodeur beating Tim Lipke with that big 440. The scores you see up there on the screen, of course, are the 5-string roll-off scores that determine the seeding for this series. So Dan Brodeur now takes a shot at Bob Kelly today. The winner of this match will face Stu Bergman next Sunday, and in 2 weeks it'll be Joe Ashline, the number 1 seed, trying to come in and defend that number 1 position. But right now Dan Brodeur is set to get us started, hoping that he can throw another one of those 440 triples.
Yeah, as I mentioned, I think it was last week, take your chances with throwing 440 and see what happens. Ooh. Well, it's only got 430 more to go. That's the way to start off, just tripping that 4 pin for the strike. And that time off target, watch out. They're nearly a double from the backside. 1 and 3 left.
Last week we were talking a little bit, Dan, about qualifying for the show and encouraging folks to take a shot at it, give it a try, find out when your next preliminary roll-off is in your local NHCBA house. That's basically all you do. Just find out when the lanes near you are having a TV50 roll-off, either for Stars and Strikes or Stars and Strikes doubles. Enter. It costs you nothing except for the bowling, so if you're going to bowl anyway, you might as well try it out on the roll-off. And as Dan Brodeur starts with a 28 for his first 2, we'll get a look at Bob Kelly, the left-hander. And my point being that sometimes even the guys that you see on the show here a lot don't have things go their way in the roll-offs. This is an element that we really don't talk about a lot, but for instance, in one of our earlier roll-offs this year, Dan Brodeur was entered in that one also, and you know, this roll-off he finished 4th to qualify here for the show as Bob Kelly starts with his spare. But in the roll-off prior to this one, Dan was not in the top 5.
No.
He was down at number 50, which just goes to show that from roll-off to roll-off, things can change a lot. And I think for most people, what they find is after they get into the first one and they get kind of accustomed to the system, then you can kind of go on from there and get adjusted to it and try and make some good things happen. It's sometimes the first time that gets you the most nervous. 2 fine spares for Bob Kelly to start it.
2-4-6 that time with the help of some wood, sweep it across into the 6 pin. Dan Brodeur up for his 3rd. going to look at the 2 and the 6. And a very, very makeable spare the way everything is set up for him. Wood sliding back. He's going to be right on the 2 pin. He's got a piece of wood in between that should take out the 6.
Speaking of Dan's 50th place finish in that previous roll-off, just 2 spots ahead of him in 48th place was Bob Kelly.
Danny missed that one to the left, a lot farther left than he wanted to go. Just was able to clip the 2 pin, but just barely, not enough to use the wood for the 6.
$10 for Dan. Right on the head pin and right on it. Through the middle, and fortunate that it wasn't worse.
7-10, and lots of lumber in front of the 10, which he's going to try to use to clear out both pins.
Yep.
And he does. 7-10. Right on top of the wood.
Bob Kelly on a spare. 8. He takes the early lead. Bob making his 18th appearance here on Stars and Strikes. He was with us on several occasions last year, but was unable to get into the Tournament of Champions. The last time he was here was back in March. Well, it's not going to go. The ball is still there. The pin is still there. Nothing's going to hit it, though.
And a little bit of house cleaning.
Talking about Bob's last appearance here, he lost to Mike Poulin. That was back in March. Prior to that last season, he had, on one other occasion, finished as the number 2 seed and won a very dramatic match by 1 pin against Dave Richards, and then fell in the ladder championship match to Pat Pay, who of course ended up winning it all last year. And that'll be a $9 for Bob Kelly.
Just sliding off and coming in contact with a piece of wood in the channel before hitting the 7 pin. So therefore, it's a 9.
Bob also was here once last year in mixed doubles bowling with his wife, Marianne, who is here watching her husband in action on this show today. Ooh, just sliding by the head pin.
We received some mail last couple weeks, and one of them I'll get to very shortly when Bob Kelly clears out the 4 horsemen 1, 3, 6, and 10, and let's watch the replay on that. Just splitting the 1 and the 3.
Went to the left side the first time trying to clip it, and that time played it the other way.
Now Dan Brodeur will fill the spare in the 4th, trailing by 6.
Again, a little bit full, and this time he doesn't have any wood left around. The 2, 4, 6, 10. This will look pretty if it goes. Let's see. Ooh.
Just sliding by the 2. Didn't miss it by much. This letter comes to us from John, I guess, O'Leary.
Yes.
And all the lovely people at Crestwood. And they watch the show each and every Sunday. And a nice little note from John O'Leary. And they're very, very pleased that we have 2 shows now. He's not a real big football fan, so he enjoys the 2 hours of Candlepin bowling on the winds, and all the other people. Some of them aren't able to pick up Channel 50, but they find a way. He's been watching bowling for a good number of years, so John and all the people and his wife, and all the lovely people at Crestwood, welcome aboard.
Spare for Dan Brodeur on the diamond in the 6th. Bob Kelly punching out the half Worcester right. Well, that was very nice of Mr. O'Leary to jot us a line, and we...
From Milford, New Hampshire.
say hello to all the folks there that watch us every week, and I'm sure there are many similar locations where we have faithful viewers every week, and really appreciate it. In fact, it's funny that Mr. O'Leary was talking about the football references, because I was thinking about maybe trying to have us work as many football references as we could into the double show, just so that people wouldn't get too,
Still have that feel that maybe.
Yeah. And of course, this crowd here often sounds like a football game, so that helps too, I guess.
As long as the bowlers don't start throwing body blocks at each other when they're shooting for spares or something. Bob's got a tough spare leave in the 7 and the 8, piece of wood in front of, which he's going to have to use, and he's going to have to try to cap it.
Yes!
Oh, wow.
Oh, nice shot. This will be a fun one to look at again as the ball takes out the 7-pin.
It's like the ball may have even clipped the 8-pin as it went by and came back down on top of the 7. So great shot, matches the markup already posted by Dan Brodeur, which he'll fill right now with this ball.
With a 6.
7. Do
like
I hear 8?
Like I said.
1, 3, and 7 left.
Yes. Fine shot.
2 in a row. And his 4th mark of the match, 3 spares and a strike. There you see the head pin going down and clearing out the 7.
If you're thinking ahead to joining us on a taping session of Candlepin Stars and Strikes here at Park Place Lanes, we'd love to see you. Stop in, say hello. We're here all day from about 9:30 in the morning until 4 or 4:30 in the afternoon, and we will be here again on Sunday, November 24th, taping Stars and Strikes. So if you're in the neighborhood, Sunday, November 24th is the date. And again, we're at Park Place Lanes, Route 28 in Windham, New Hampshire, which is very convenient to reach from all points in southern New Hampshire. It's right off exit 3 near Canopy Lake Park off Route 93.
Bob Kelly working on a spare. But he really fires that ball.
This could go. Nope. Anytime the wood with that red line right in the center hits a standing pin, there's always a danger that it'll go.
5-pin and almost a foregone conclusion with that much wood to play. Bob Kelly, spare in the 7th. Trailing by 1. Anything over a 1 fill, he'll take the lead, or retake the lead. It's been back and forth this first game.
Right in the pocket that time, and how about the 7-10?
Bobby directing traffic. He wants the wood in front of the 7 to move a little farther to the left so he had a clear shot at glancing the ball, but let's see. He does anyways.
Oh, Bob stayed right down there on his knees to make sure it happened.
A little clap of the hands right at the end there, and that knocked over the 7-pin. So 2 in a row and a lead of 8 pins. Make it 3 in a row. Multiplying as we speak. Dan Brodeur back on the head pin again, but this time cluster of 3, the 3, 6, and 9 with the 7-pin and a piece of wood that may help. Going to glance the ball off that. Now whether he can turn it enough to grab the 7-pin remains to be seen. Yes, he does.
Yes. Nice
Very
shot.
nicely done. Right on the red line, it actually came off the left sidewall to clear the 7-pin. He wants a little better fill than last time on lane 31, where he always managed 2. And it looks a lot better.
That's
You
more
betcha.
than 2. Yep.
And Brooklyn side this time, the 5 and now the 7. Strike on spare, 131 and a ball to come. And another fine opening game by Dan Brodeur.
It will be a 138 with 1 ball to come. $140 for Dan Brodeur. Last week he opened up with a 159, followed that with a 166.
Bobby put 2 fingers up. He thought he was going to have the half Worcester, but knocked out a few more for a 4 fill.
Inside almost. Wow, leaves the 4-pin.
Well, I think we're in a dogfight the entire 3 games today. Both bowlers seem to be, if not making the difficult spares, at least coming very close to making them. 123 with a box to come, so he really needs a mark with 7 to tie. Anything over that, he'd take the lead. Otherwise, Dan Brodeur will have a small lead going to the second game.
Well, be a single pin opportunity, the 5.
Unbelievable, those 9 just flew. And nothing came close to touching the 5. The kingpin. This time, oh, sliding to the left. First time, I believe, in this first game that either bowler missed a legitimate spare leave. And it's a 132.
So it's an 8-pin advantage for Dan Brodeur. After 1 game here on Stars and Strikes, lots more to come, including our bonus ball contest, and we'll do that right after we do these words. We're going to wait and give everybody another shot, and then we'll empty it after we get our next winner. Bob Kelly leading things off here in the middle game, trailing by 8.
And looking at the 257.
Nope.
Not quite. It was on the object pin, being the 2-pin, but flush and just drove the 2 and the 5 straight back.
Want to take a moment to acknowledge our participating sponsors for this series, once again on Stars and Strikes. Somerville Lumber, where you can get it right the first time, and Rockingham Toyota Dodge Nissan. Come to Salem and save. Rockingham Toyota Dodge Nissan in Salem, New Hampshire. Playing it inside and getting it.
The same type of shot he had the first game, the opposite side. He just left 1 pin standing. This time, he doesn't leave anything standing. It's pretty when it goes, that cluster of 4 pins plus the, in that case, the 4-7.
6 marks for Bob Kelly now, all spares. Dan Brodeur already has 6. 2 of his are strikes. And he may have another one.
Oh,
no, the 4-pin stays up.
Boy, if you young bowlers could see the extension and the follow through that Dan had on that ball. It's amazing he didn't get them all because his mechanics are just so good right there. You see the good follow through and the good result.
And the finish high. Usually, for most people, that's what works.
That's right. Sliding foot and the extension of the follow through should be pointed toward your target.
It's interesting, too, though, unless you see yourself do it, get somebody to videotape you, perhaps, bowling, you don't see it. I remember when we did that program several years ago, I had never seen myself bowl before, and I was really snapping the ball, and I had never really noticed that before.
It's amazing now because I do a lot of instructor schools, and we use the video camera with all the students in the class, and it's amazing at some of them, some of the flaws that we pick up because you can slow the video, well, the film, we can slow it way down and just really analyze each and every step. It's quite informative. Bob Kelly working on a spare in the second. As a matter of fact, I'll be traveling to Canada very shortly to do an instructor school.
At the Sky Dome?
No. Going up to Douglastown. Douglastown. You fly from Boston to Halifax, from Halifax to Moncton, and then you drive 2.5 hours.
So this is a school for people who teach bowling.
Yes.
You're teaching people who teach bowling.
I'm going to be teaching people to teach how to teach bowling. Yes.
Right.
Yeah. So each house will have some instructors. In fact, this house is supplying 30 people, all from the same house. They have a tremendous children's program up there in Canada. It's a great sport for the youngsters. So those of you who are thinking about that, should contact your nearest NHCBA house and ask them about the junior leagues. Oh, what a shot.
Very nice spare by Bob Kelly, his 3rd in a row.
Just plays the wood effectively. The ball carries through for the 5. The wood takes the 7 and the 8, and it's 3 marks in a row.
Dan Brodeur just catching the head pin, and he'll take the strike.
2 or 3 times he had to hit that 2 pin. He hit it, stood up, hit it again, and finally the 3rd time, I believe, is once, twice, and nudge it down. Strike in the 3rd for Dan. Whoa, right in the pocket again. Scrambling 8 of them. 6 and 9 left. Trying to match the dual marks that Bob Kelly has up in the 3rd and the 4th. And he's going to do just that.
We will take a timeout. Both bowlers starting to heat it up here in the middle game on Stars and Strikes. Tight match going. We'll be back. Don't go away. Bob Kelly has 3 marks in a row. Spare working in the 4th. Wow, that looked like it probably should have been a strike ball, and he almost ended up with a 7-10.
Just knocked the 7 pin down. And you have to watch out for this one because he's got a piece of wood in front of the 10, but it's resting against the sidewall. If you're not careful, it'll snap off the sidewall and in front of the 10. You want to place the ball as near the channel as you can.
Something like that.
Make it 4 spares in a row.
And 9 altogether.
Back and forth we go. The only thing that can slow these bowlers down are commercials. 7 pin drop, 7, 9, 7. Try that again.
Slow down now. Easy.
I need a commercial. 1, 7, and 8.
Ooh, just missing.
Each bowler is waiting for the other one to make a little flinch here, and I guess this mini storm is over right now, at least temporarily, after 4 marks in a row for Bob Kelly. Dan Brodeur got one brewing himself with a strike and a spare up.
Well, there are possibilities here. The 1, 2, 9, and 10 with wood. No.
Oh, look it. He actually touched that pin. The pin is still rocking a little bit, but not enough to knock it down for the spare. And back and forth we'll go. He reclaimed the lead temporarily anyways, but now it's going to swing back, I believe, to Bob Kelly's side by a pin. 9 in this game, but 1 pin in the match. But Dan is opposite an open frame.
Gets 1 extra pin. That leaves him a little more to shoot at.
And let's see where the wood settles down. Doesn't want it to turn too much. It looks like right in the V, he's got a real shot at making this for a spare. The 2, the 4, and the 10. Oh, he's left. I mean, he's to the right, a little farther than he wanted to go. Well, if he can pick this up, we're right flat foot tie after 16 boxes.
That's it. So we'll start all over again. The runner-up of this match will take home 4th place prize money of $175 and a runner-up plaque from the N&R Trophy Company of Winchendon, Mass. The winner, of course, moves on to face our number 2 seed, Stu Bergman, next week. Bob Kelly can't believe that he has the 5-10 after that ball.
That makes 2 of us. He buried that ball. Tough. He tried to turn it a little bit because he didn't have the good angle, but he went so far to the left trying to turn it that he just slid it by the 5 pin as well. And it's a 9, and it's 2 open frames now. 6th and 7th, as you see. Both bowlers on their way to another decent game, though. Watch
How about
out.
this? Back door.
How do you figure it?
Had the 4 horsemen. All of a sudden, he didn't have the 4 horsemen.
The opposite lane, the box before, he buried the ball in the pocket, left the 5-10. This time he misses the head pin, and the result is a strike. So you never know sometimes.
4-pin. Dan Brodeur. The wood more of a distraction than anything. And he went by on the left.
You couldn't fit a piece of paper in between the ball and that pin that time. Just missing to the left. Wow, I didn't think you could fit it through there either.
I guess that was a distraction. This match is still tied. Bob Kelly, though, has a strike up in the 8th. Dan Brodeur trying to match it. And let's see. Oh, my. He'll have the 7-10. They were both rocked a little bit. The 2-pin kicked out, but the 7 and the 10 are still there.
The wood actually turned a little bit. He's going to go after the 2 pieces of wood there, and one in the center of the lane, one in front of the 10-pin. See what happens. Yes, sir. Spare in the 8th.
Dan's 10th mark. He had 17 last week, rolling that 440, including a triple strike. Bob Kelly also has 10 marks. Dan was just trying to clear a loose ball, and he eventually did.
And a few extra,
yeah.
Or at least one extra. Bob Kelly working on a strike in the 8th. Final 2 frames, second game. And again, now that looked like a pretty good ball going in, and he leaves himself the triangle 2-4-5, which is not too bad, but he's also has the 10-pin in the right-hand corner.
How about it? No. .128 through 9 for Bob Kelly. He had a 132 opening game.
Well, Dan would like to get back up there and have the finish he had in the first game. She went spare strike 9. Of course, Bob Kelly was thinking about that and buried the ball, and he's got himself a mess.
Well, the wood, at least, is angled so that he can use it. Whether it's going to carry the shot is another question.
I would say the problem is going to be the 10-pin, but I would like the wood out further to the right, but it's going to have to carry him the ball off that wood for the 10. Nope, ball came back, just missed it. Well, 2 open frames for Dan Brodeur to work on. He's already has a spare up in the 8th, so the lead will be Bob Kelly's until Dan Brodeur does something about it in the final 2.
269 for Bob Kelly through 2. Remember, Dan Brodeur working on a spare there, so. Brooklyn side, kind of a thin hit, very strange hit.
Strange hit is right. Almost looked like we were time stopped for a second there or something, and
the ball breaking away, of course, as it hit the pins and kind of just skidded right off the lane. How about that for a
great
spare,
shot. Looked like he had the triangle by itself, but he left the 5-pin, got the 7, and then he had some help coming back for the 5 right there. Well, he can reclaim the lead.
6-pin.
He'll do just that, and could put the lead into double figures by converting this and having a decent fill on it.
3 marks in a row. So another solid finish here by Dan Brodeur. That his 12th mark of the match. Well, let's see. It looked like a half Worcester, but instead it's a 5. So I suppose you can thank small favors. Dan, you thought it was a half Worcester too.
Right, and I better do some score correcting here at the break.
So it'll be a 140 officially for Dan Brodeur in game 2. So a 2-string total of 280, and the lead is 11 at the end of 2. We'll be back. We pick out the ones that are most relevant on whatever topic and get to those. But we do appreciate all the mail. Dan Brodeur with the lead, but with a nasty spare leave here. I don't suppose you can really even call this a spare leave, but...
Well, I suppose as long as he hasn't delivered the second ball yet, we can call it a spare leave. Now it's not. 3, 6, 9, 10 left for Dan. Leading by 1 short of a dozen, 11 pins. Pretty good out, considering.
It'll be a 9. As the 9-pin won't go. Again, our next taping session here for Stars and Strikes will be November 24th. So we invite you to join us then.
Dan wants that 10 pin to go down. It's not going to happen. 2-10 left. I wonder if he could cap that. Have the ball carry him off with a 2. Well, he's going to go after the 2. So he'll be open first 2 frames.
$19 for the first 2. As you see, Dan's total 280. Dan did correct the score from game 2. It was 140, matching the 140 from game 1. I was right there with you, though, on that half Worcester. I thought it was a half Worcester, too.
Well, I wasn't even looking. You just said half Worcester, so that's what I put in.
Oh,
wow!
Did it too well. Cut that 5-pin over a little bit too well. Passed in front of the 7-pin.
And came right straight back across. It never angled at all. I'm going to take a look at that one in slow-mo. Watch the 5-pin. Straight to the sidewall and straight back.
Oh, nice pocket hit for Bob Kelly.
And the testy single pin, that being the 6. Ooh, that's 2 singles Bob has missed now. 5-pin last time, and now the 6. And again.
Oh.
So after all said and done, Dan Brodeur increases the lead to that dozen. He increases by 1 more. Just mentioned that Dan's individual high triple was 441. We didn't realize that last week, and he just missed bettering that with 440 right here on the wins and Stars and Strikes.
We were worried about our records here, and we
forgot his individual. 5-pin for Dan. Got to hurry. Whoa, just caught the wood. I'm sure he was worried about capping it, but after he let the ball go, I'm sure he's worried about going by on the right. Spare in the 3rd.
I wonder if Dan was aware of that. So he basically needed a mark going into that last box
big
last
strike.
week. Strike on spare.
Knowing Dan the way I know Dan, he probably did not even enter his mind. He was just more concerned on beating Timmy. Now, Bob Kelly's got some work now.
No.
He continues his assault on the head pin. Now he's got a spare leave in the triangle 5, 8, 9, but let's see where the wood settles down. He'll get the 5 and 8 out. Can he carry the 9? No, he got the 5, 9, left the 8. That's going to be a quick increase in 10 pins on the lead for Dan Brodeur. Make it 11 more pins.
So the lead is now 23, and Dan Brodeur with a strike up in the 4th already. Right through the center. Oh, how about this? Wow. Great effort by Bob, leaving the 6-pin.
Unbelievable, that close to making that 2, 4, 7, 3, and 6.
We will pause right here. Dan Brodeur will be working on a strike when we return. He is in the lead in week 2. Don't go away. Dan Brodeur working on a strike. He's got 14 marks already.
He can push the lead up over 30 with a 7 fill or better. Well, spread eagle minus the 4-pin.
I don't remember the last time we've seen the 1-8-9 go out. That almost was what he had there.
Well, he's going to go after the 3, 6, and 10 and try to get at least an 8 fill and maybe get something to jump across. Well, take that back. Pushes the 3-pin out of there for a 6 fill.
And a $7. Well, through completed frames, as you see, the lead is 29 with 6 to go.
Right back in the pocket, and this time the 7-pin will stand. Double piece of wood out front. And then he's taking a good look at that one. The wood is going to separate. Now, whether one stays in contact or stays on a lane to come in contact with the 7. Before I can get out of my mouth here, Dan's got another spare up on the board. Well, Bob Kelly's got to mount some offense. 4 horsemen left.
Oh, and he had wood sliding across, and it went right through and didn't hit anything. And it'll be a $7 to match Dan's $7.
Well, Dan's going to feel good about that. Figured he'd lose a few in count, at least with a 7 frame, but now he's got a mark for Bob Kelly to contend with. And the boxes are getting short. 7-pin. Now keep in mind, Bob has missed his last 2 single pins, so this pin does not look very big up there to him. No problem, though. And that's a tough spare for a left-hander, that 7-pin.
Well, that at least gives him a fighting chance coming down to the final 4. But it basically is going to depend on what Dan Brodeur does, because he will be up first.
29 pins, that's roughly 3 more marks, maybe a little better than 3 more marks, depending on the fill, more than your opponent with only 4 frames left. So these fills are very important.
Just 5.
4 horsemen left plus the 9-pin. And when you don't make the spare, you're continually thinking, don't leave anything standing. Don't help your opponent out at all.
And he doesn't.
That's what Dan does, clears him out for the 10. Now, temporarily, the lead is 34. 3 frames remaining for Dan Brodeur.
Right in the pocket again. The 4-pin remains.
Well, the all-important 8th frame. This would be a huge mark on Danny Brodeur's side of the ledger. If nothing more, he's got a mark going to the last 2, would give Bob Kelly another thing to think about getting up there working on his spare.
No.
Really held on to that ball.
Couple of 10 boxes, so an opportunity for Bob Kelly as he steps up working on a spare.
Yes, 4 full frames remaining. This is on a spare.
Oh boy.
That hurt. Matches the 5 on Dan that Dan had on his spare, but really going to have to convert. Well, it's going to have an outside chance, but he's going to have to put at least 3 marks up and hope that Dan Brodeur does not. And in fact, he's going to have to ask for some forgiveness from Dan and a bad frame.
I mentioned that Bob's wife Marianne is here. So is his son Cam. Oh, it's pouring now for Bob Kelly. He just cannot carry an extra pin. And look at that, he almost converts the spread eagle, but he's just had too many tough shots to contend with.
So the light is being ready to be turned off. He can throw strikes, which he'll have to do. But Dan Brodeur can even have something to say about that with these final two. Dan was missing the 8-pin. He's a re-rack.
He's knocking them down even before they get up there.
Oh. This time we have 10. And again, off target, 5, 4 horsemen plus the 9. Next week's challenger, Stu Bergman, will be with us. First time on the show.
And he's going to be facing a hot bowler. Dan Brodeur may throw another 400 here. He'll need a mark in the 10th to do it. .107 through 9, 387 overall. Well, he'll have to show us a mark if he's going to get a 400 this time.
I just got a feeling. I just got a feeling he's going to make this. It's going to have to be on the inside. Well, Bob Kelly's, he's got to be thinking strikes.
Four 10 boxes to finish the third game for Dan Brodeur, and a 117, so 397 is the total, which means Bob Kelly's got to roll a 129 to win it, which means he needs a whole bunch of strikes. And that will do it. Dan Brodeur makes it 2 in a row. The best Bob can do now is 127, and he would lose by 1. Real struggle this third game for Bob. It's just every pin has been a struggle, really. So it's 2 in a row for Dan Brodeur as he defeats Bob Kelly. You see the final numbers up on the board, and we'll be back to handle the bonus ball contest and chat with the bowlers in a minute. Welcome back here to Park Place Lanes and Candlepin Stars and Strikes, and on the way up here is Bob Kelly to receive the check for $175. Obviously, Dan Brodeur kept a little something from last week over to this week.
He threw back-to-back 40s and put a big 28 on top of it. He's been bowling well, so my strike ball wasn't working, and I missed a couple key shots today, and Dan took advantage of it. That's what he's supposed to do.
Plus, I know everybody who's ever bowled can sympathize with that last string you had when it just seemed like you couldn't get a break, no extra pins dropping, nothing happening.
I think the 9 drop, put a little turn on me, and I just couldn't get it back, and then I started going through the middle, and Dan took advantage of it, and that's what you got to do to win.
Bob, it's good to see you again. Hopefully we'll have you back real soon. Congratulations, and I know we're going to get a look at your son later while we go and do our credits. He's going to roll a couple of balls for us, and we'll get a look at him a little bit later. But right now we're going to get a look at Dan Brodeur, who's going to roll our bonus ball. We have $30 available in the jackpot today, and of course a couple of brand new sets of bowling balls on the line, and Dan will see if he can get us a match here. He's off to the right, but look out! Oh my, a backdoor strike. Got any backdoor strikes in there?
Well, let's see.
It would have to say a backdoor strike on here to be a... No, I'm just kidding. It's a 7. The guess was 7 for Helen Blanchard for Lowell, Mass. Well, Helen, I think for a split second there it was a 7, but it turned into a strike. So we'll be sending you a consolation prize. And for you, Dan, you didn't quite get the 400 this time, but the win is what you'll take, I guess.
Win is a win. Yeah, thanks. Yeah.
We talked about this a little bit during the show. Were you aware last week that at the end you had a chance to set your own high triple to break your own high triple score?
Yeah, but that was secondary. Winning the match is the important thing.
Absolutely. So now you come back again, try and make it 3 in a row next week. Stu Bergman will be your opponent next week.
I don't know him, but I'm sure if he made the roll-off, he's a good bowler. So
All right,
try our best.
we'll be seeing you then. Thanks, Dan. That's 2 in a row for Dan Brodeur. And next week, again, a newcomer to our show from the Boston area, Stu Bergman coming in.
I was lucky for me. I was able to beat him last week, and I'm looking forward to it. He's looking forward to it, and I'm sure Dan is.
All right, we'll be back next Sunday at 12 noon here on Candlepin Stars and Strikes. Stay tuned for Stars and Strikes doubles, but for now, for Dan Murphy and the whole TB50 Sports crew, Doug Brown, so long, everybody, from Park Place Lanes.